Shalom everybody, and welcome back to Insights in the Parsha of the Week, Parshat Tetze, based on the teachings of Rebbe Nachman. Parshat Tetze has many laws. We'd like to go into the laws of Kila'im. Kila'im are forbidden mixtures, forbidden iruv. Kila'im is a funny word. We'll have to see what it means. But it's translated by the Targum as eruvin, la'arev. The person is mixing one with the other. So just before we go into the verses, the halacha delineates 5 prohibitions of Kila'im. Number 1, which is from in Vayikra, which is Parshat Kedoshim, is Kila'ehi ilan, the prohibition of grafting 2 types of trees. Halachically, when a new fruit is produced by grafting, like for example a nectarine, that was an original fruit. There's peaches and plums, and however they got a nectarine, or in Israel they have what's called a pomela, right? It's forbidden to graft, but once it's done, even in prohibition, you're allowed to eat from it. You're allowed to gain hana'ah, derive pleasure from these combinations of new fruits made. But there's a prohibition in doing it. It's called kila'e ilan. That's one of the ramifications of the halacha. Number 2, which is from this week's parsha, Kila'e hakerem, the admixtures of a vineyard. It's a few things. In the parsha this week, let's just take a look at the verse actually. Okay, this is chapter 22, verse 9. It says, Lo tizra karmecha kilayim, do not sow your vineyard kilayim. Okay, and Rashi explains that the farmer, he's sowing seeds of wheat and oats and grape seeds all together. Okay, that's one delineation of kilayim. You know, they all grow together. That's forbidden, and also planting close to a vineyard, another type of planting like wheat, etc. That's also prohibited. Okay, so that's this week's parsha, and it's also mentioned elsewhere. Number 3. Kila'e zra'im. Vineyard has one prohibition. Now, besides that, there's also any 2 types of crops. Growing one like a field and then another type of a produce of seeds next to it, like tomatoes, cucumbers, but too close in proximity, is prohibited. And also throwing them when the farmer sows the seeds together, that's also the prohibition. So kila'e zra'im, even though in the vineyard you can have a mixture of other zra'im, and you're now transgressing the prohibition of various plantings, various seeds. When it's with grapes, there's an additional prohibition, okay? So those are 3. Number 4 is grafting 2 animals, like creating a mule from a donkey and a horse. That's forbidden to do. Once it's done though, like the trees, you're allowed to gain benefit from it. But also, this week's parsha, again, the next verse, right after this verse that we just read, so verse number 10, chapter 22, verse 10, Lo tacharosh b'shor b'chamor yachdov. You're not allowed to sow a field, to plow a field with, for example, a cow, an ox, and the donkey together. Joining them together, that they work together, that's forbidden. And also grafting 2 animals together, it's forbidden. But if it's done in prohibition, a Jew is allowed to gain benefit from it, but he's not allowed to do it. It's a prohibition. Okay, and then the last one is the big law of shatnez, kilai bigadim, not wearing wool and linen together, whether stitched, whether joined together, the lining inside. There's many details in the halacha of shatnez. That's this week's parsha also. So 5 categories: the prohibition of admixture in trees, in vineyards, in plowing the seeds, in animals, and in clothing. Okay, of them 3, like we said, are in the parsha this week. Another 2 I mentioned in Parshat Kedoshim, and also what's mentioned this week's parsha is also by the way mentioned there. But there are 5 in total. Let's go into this idea of kila'im. The word kila'im is funny. On one hand, it means a mixture, but also the root of the word is kele, like a prison, someone who's in a prison. There's a kele, kalu. Let's try to understand what's going on here. Before this, we have to use introductory teachings from Rebbe Nachman and from the Kabbalah, of course. Rebbe Nachman introduces to us in lesson 24, Likutey Moharan, this concept of the chamber of exchanges, Hechal HaTmurot, or also in plural, the chambers of exchanges. There's really one chamber of exchanges, but at every level you encounter another one. So that's why it's plural, chambers of exchanges. These chambers of exchanges is the energy level used by the evil to fool people, to trap people. An exchange is swapping and switching bad for good, good for bad, light to darkness, darkness to light, sweet to bitter, bitter to sweet, good to evil, evil to good. That's the ability of the Yetzer Hara, the evil one, to fool people in the world. It's called Hechalat Murot. This whole world in itself is a admixture due to Adam's eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. By eating of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, he caused good and evil, which were initially separate, by eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge and integrating into him, being the essence of all creation. So he allowed for the admixture of good and evil to be mixed up by eating it, partaking of the fruit. Now it's a part of all of creation. And our work is to separate, to try to find the good that's trapped by the evil in the chamber of exchanges. It keeps the good trapped by keeping people fooled and stuck so that they can't find and detect and extract the good that's trapped in the creation. Our goal as Jewish people is to fight the chamber of exchanges by seeking out good, fighting the bad, not being fooled by the tests of the evil one, not being tricked into falsehood as a cover-up for truth, and vice versa. And by doing so, being able to locate with truth, the light of truth, to find the good that's trapped and extracting it. Now Rebbe Nachman reveals in lesson 24, the way to do this is through joy. When a Jew is besimcha, when he has happiness, so even though he's battling and he's stuck in the chamber of exchanges, the evil's force using the chamber of exchanges to get a person stuck and confused, because however a Jew is working on being happy, true happiness, the happiness of connecting to Hashem, the happiness of fulfilling the mitzvot and the Torah. That's the only true happiness Rav Nosson explains in this world. The only true happiness is the eternal happiness, was the happiness that we have in our connection to Hashem, the Torah, the mitzvot. When a Jew works on that, so no matter how tricking the evil one uses the chamber of exchanges to trap a person, because a person now is always working on being besimcha, that enables him to fight the chamber of exchanges and extract the good. Because, like Rebbe Nachman teaches and Rav Nosson elaborates, the way how to subdue the chamber of exchanges is through simcha, happiness. And the way the chamber of exchanges traps a person is by getting them stuck into frustration, confusion, and anxiety, and worry, and depression, and sadness. It's all like a domino effect. So therefore, the way to get out is through simcha. So now, going back to Kila'im. Kila'im are admixtures where the Torah warns these 5 are forbidden. Why they're forbidden? Why do these stick out more? Because these 5 prohibitions cause a admixture which makes it afterwards very difficult to extract holiness from the chamber of exchanges. The word is Kila'im, like we said, kele, which means to be like incarcerated, imprisoned, in jail. Because when these prohibitions are transgressed, the holiness, holy sparks, whether it's in the trees, or in the vineyard, or in the seeds, or in the animals, or in human beings with clothing, the holy sparks that were initially meant to be extracted and elevated, when the prohibition of Kila'im is activated, chas v'shalom, it causes that these 5 items, which have holiness and holy sparks attached to them, stay trapped. That's why it's dangerous. The Torah's warning, these 5 don't do, because they cause Kila'im, and the Kila'im is that now they're stuck, like imprisoned in the chamber of exchanges, that even if you wanted to, you can't extract them. You need to work extra hard to fix and rectify this. We'll explain this point coming up at the end. Of the 5, only 4 of the 5, once there's a transgression made, you can gain hana'ah. It's called benefit from the derivative work. So when you plow 2 different animals together, which is a prohibition, at the time it's a prohibition, but the produce that they plowed, you're allowed to eat from. Also from trees that are grafted, you can eat from. Also from zra'im, Like we said, they were planted together, planted close by. You can eat from them. And all the four that we mentioned, the only one exception is the vineyard. Vineyard, Kila'im, remains to be forbidden forever. You can't do anything about it. You have to destroy the vineyard and everything. You can't derive any benefit from Kila'im, the admixtures of the vineyard, whatever the halachic qualifications are. So now, let's go back again. Why these five? What do they represent? The admixture of the tree, the vineyard, the seeds, the animals, and the clothing, shatnez. What do they represent that they're so severe that the actual prohibition of Kila'im, which means on a Kabbalistic, Hasidic perspective, having items trapped in the exchange, because it's called eruv. Kila'im, like Targum Onkelos translates, is eruvim. The word Kila'im doesn't appear in this week's Parsha, by the way. The word Kila'im appears in Parshat Kedoshim, where the other prohibitions are mentioned. But Kila'im means eruv, of a mixing, admixture, and a way that it's stuck. And that's what the Chamber of Exchanges does. It likes mixing good and evil, right and wrong, pure and impure. So there's a frustration and confusion of knowing where's the truth and knowing where to extract, okay? These five basically correspond to the blemish of the 5 ways of fighting and battling the exchange chambers, which, like we said earlier, is simcha. If you recall from many previous classes that we've given, based on Rebbe Nachman's amazing lesson 24, Rebbe Nachman reveals that there's basically 5 major ways of how to activate simcha in order to come to true joy in life. Okay? They're called the fabulous 5. They correspond to, like Rav Nosson elaborates in Likutey Moharan, the 5 voices of joy: kol sason, kol simcha, kol chatan, kol kala, kol ormim hodu Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chasdo. The voice of sason, delight, of joy, the voice of a chatan who's happy, and the kala, and the voice of those who give thanks to Hashem. And we showed how Rav Nosson explains that these are basically the 5 ways of being happy and working on happiness to come to true happiness. Number 1 is acting silly and telling jokes. Being silly, telling jokes, to break a person's seriousness and to, yes, go beneath his dignity, to be happy, to tell jokes in order to come to true simcha. Not to feel embarrassed because of it, okay? Number 2 is to tell jokes. Is to dance and to clap hands and music, movement, momentum, right? Happiness, songing, nigunim, all that in order to bring on a good sweat and a good joy. Number 3, finding the good points. Finding your good points. Rebbe Nachman's seminal teaching called Azamra, Likutey Moharan lesson 282, of I will sing with my good points, my other good point, another good point that I find, and another one, even if they're so tiny and small and mixed with so much garbage, still there's a good point, okay? That's Azamra, finding my good points. Number 4, giving thanks to Hashem for everything, besides my good points, but finding the good in Hashem's creation and thanking Him of appreciation for every tiny good and giving thanks to Hashem because of that. And number 5, the final one and the highest level, is the joy of the future, simcha de la'atid, that we know that in the end, in the ultimate future, everything's going to work out as Hashem planned. Our existence, everything will be totally rectified. All of the upside downness of this crazy world will be fixed and rectified. So if that's the case, why should I be weighed down by the present? The present is so miserable and dark and gloomy and there's nothing to be happy about. So to connect to the future, that my whole hope is the anticipation of Mashiach's arrival, resurrection of the dead, the third temple, and everything's going to work out, Bezrat Hashem. The evil will be punished and the good will be rewarded. And everything I suffered for trying to be a good person will be rewarded and paid back. So everything's going to work out so I can be happy from the future and bring it and borrow it to the present. Okay? So now, if we take a look at these 5, they basically correspond. We can find a way how they correspond to the 5 prohibitions of Kila'im. Okay? Let's take a look from the first level of Mile Dishtuta, telling jokes. Telling jokes, which we said is considered beneath, it can be a person sometimes is very doubtful to tell jokes and act silly and happy because it's like a dent in his kavod, and a dent in a person's personal honor. Now, the Gemara says Rabbi Yochanan would call his garments mechabedute, because it's true, the garments of a person give him the respect. When you see like a Rosh Hashiva with the black hat and the black jacket, so you act differently, you have more respect, because The clothing of a person, they actually give respect to the person. That's why in halacha, a Torah scholar should dress respectably, should dress in a normal manner. And it's very detrimental. It's like almost a death penalty for a Torah scholar to have clothing which is all dirty and stained and everything. It's really bad. As a person has to watch his clothing, that they should be very clean and neat and upkept properly, okay? So clothing represents the idea of kavod, okay? Now, shatnez is where a person uses forbidden clothing, which in a sense like forbidden honor. In our context, what is forbidden honor? When a person refrains from acting silly and joking, when he really needs that boost of happiness, he's dying inside, he's about to fall into depression, and he needs to act silly and tell jokes and be in that mood in order to save him. But no, because of his personal honor, I can't go do these things beneath my dignity. That's a punishment. That's wrong. That's like the prohibition of mixing forbidden garments to cover himself, because we said the garments honor a person. So now forbidden combinations like wool and linen joined together is now where a person makes honor but improperly from a blemished combination where it's not deemed right. That's when a person, for example, needs to act silly and to have a joking attitude and humor in order to save himself, to bring himself to some joy, some modicum of joy, before he collapses into total depression and anxiety and sadness, God forbid. So that's like the prohibition of shatnez. And in that sense, the Kila'im, the mixture of wool and linen, is the danger zone of forbidden honor. Wool is wool, linen. Don't mix them together. They're separate honors. You can have them separately, but joining together is a prohibition because it corresponds to a broken honor, an admixture of wrong honor, which is the case of not telling jokes and not being happy, not being silly because the person feels it's beneath his dignity. That is the blemish that leads to being trapped, kele, in the exchange chambers. That's number one. That's the idea of the clothing, okay? Number two, dancing, okay? A person also he feels very heavy and lazy and lethargic, and he doesn't want to get up to dance. You know, Rebbe Nachman once told one of his disciples, I'll give you a way how to not to see Gehinnom. Dance every day. And in fact, till today, the Breslov Hasidim, they dance every day. Every day after Shacharit, after Arvit, in every Breslov shul, they grab their hands and they dance. It's a big thing to dance every day. Your day is filled with all types of worries and busy and stress. You need to take that time to let go, put on some music, move around, dance, be happy. This is your weapon against the exchange chambers. Now the blemish of this is the admixture of animals. Animals move. We use animals. Like the Torah's example, this week's Parsha, right? Lo tacharosh b'shor v'chamor yachdav. Like we said, verse number 10. Don't plow the field with the ox and the donkey together. Okay? So now plowing is movement. Now the animals are moving. There's movement, which is the idea like dancing. It's not necessarily dancing in this case, but it's holy dancing that is required. Here, where you're joining an ox and a donkey, as a person dances for, God forbid, illicit purposes, sexual blemish purposes, to go to a pub and dance, romantic or forbidden relations, whatever, and he's dancing for that end, as opposed to dancing for the sake of coming close to Hashem. So there's the blemish dancing and movement, and there's dancing and movement for holiness. So now, what traps a person in the exchange chambers is the forbidden momentum, the forbidden movement, the animalistic desire movement of forbidden relationships, which is like a donkey and an ox, which is also grafting forbidden animals, different species together, and using them also together. This idea of forbidden joy, forbidden dancing and movement, which is for illicit and sexual desire, say, for example, as opposed to the holy type of dancing, where a person is dancing out of joy to serve Hashem, like we do on Simcha Torah. We dance in honor of the Torah, like King David did, and he was even put down by his wife Michal, the daughter of Shaul, when David was finally bringing the holy ark to Yerushalayim. So he was wearing a white, clean linen garment, and he was dancing. It's amazing how the Torah says what type of garment. Linen, one of the two for shatnez. He was wearing one linen garment, and he was dancing, and the Torah says mefazez umecharker, and Michal said, it's beneath the honor of the king of Israel that he's acting like a lowlife, dancing and singing and all whistling and clapping his hands and moving like a lowlife. And King David said, I'll do even thousands of times more for the honor of the Torah. For the honor of the Torah, I'll stand in my hand and do everything for the honor of the Torah. That's the idea of dancing for a positive vein. And then there's the forbidden. And that's the idea of the prohibition of plowing with two different types of animals, is where you're joining the joy and the dancing and the movement for the wrong purpose. That's like joining in the two opposites together. And that causes the trapping in the Kila'im, in the exchange chambers. Number 3, azamra, finding the good points. Finding the good points corresponds to the prohibition of the vineyard. The vineyard, it's something amazing. What happens when a person normally drinks wine? When a person drinks wine, there's the rule from the Gemara, nichnas yain, yatsa sod. When wine enters a person, comes out as inner secrets. Let's take a look first of all. Yain is yud yud nun. Yud is 10, another yud 10, that's 20. Nun 50, that's 70. So the secrets, the inner secrets of a person, Samech is 60, Vav is 6, Dalit is 4, also 70. So the Gemara says, when a person drinks wine, what's inside of him comes out. Okay? So if now a person is is all year round trying to serve Hashem, when he drinks in holiness, so his inner desire, his inner goodness, his inner simcha comes out. Like the simcha of Purim, where it's such a big mitzvah to drink, because then is the greatest time for the wine to do its job to bring out the inner joy of a person who's always happy, and it really comes out with the wine. So the wine is the inner good of a person coming out, his inner good point coming out, which he's happy about, and he's singing to Hashem because of that. That's the idea of the vineyard, of wine, which is the derivative of the vineyard, okay? Now the blemish of, like the Rashi says, b'mapolet yad, the person plows the sea, sows the field with wheat grains, seorah, oat grains, or barley, and also grape seeds together. The grape seed, which produces the vineyard, is the idea of a good point. But by the person who blemishes his good points, he's not satisfied with his good point. He's not happy with his good point. And he says, no, I need to also put in other additives. I'm not happy ever. I need more to add. He's not happy with his good point. He can't focus on his good point. He needs to graft and add admixture, not a graft, sorry. He needs to also add other ingredients, other crops and plantings, in order to just cover up on his good point, thinking that will make him feel better, and he's never feeling good about himself. He's always feeling empty, because he can't begin to appreciate one little good point. Just the grape seed, the vineyard, the inner essence of good that comes out from the vineyard, from the grapes, from the wine. No, he's not happy about that. So the blemish of the kerem, of the Kila'im kerem, is the blemish of finding the good points, because he's not. It's like it needs other additions in order to try to be happy, but it doesn't work, because he can't be happy with a little bit of good. Rebbe Nachman says, if you can't, he says this in Rebbe Nachman's wisdom, Sichot Haran, so long as a person can't begin to appreciate his little good point, he will never advance in his Yiddishkeit. If you can't accept being happy with a little bit of good, then they will always block from you the gateways of holiness. You won't advance. Until you learn your lesson, until you're hit so much in life, where you only then begin to appreciate every little good point. Because until now, I was looking big, all or nothing. I want all the highest levels of holiness or nothing. I want to make it all the way. I want that my davening should be perfect, my Torah study should be perfect, my perspective of Judaism should be perfect. And then if it's not, then I'm not going to be happy at all. You will never advance in life. Never. Until you learn how to be happy with just a little bit of good. Only then can you advance. That's the idea of the vineyard. Because it's so important, even the derivative of the prohibition of the vineyard is prohibited also. It's the only Kila'im, the only admixture that remains to be forbidden even after it's done. Okay? Number 4, giving thanks. Giving thanks. Hoda'ah. Okay? Hoda'ah is appreciating and expressing the thanks to Hashem, the appreciation for recognition of His good. It's not just your good that you're happy about. It's the good of the creation. and you're expressing thanks. See, it's one thing to find your good point and be happy about it, and it's another level to give thanks. To give thanks. Once you pass the level of finding good points, then you can give thanks. And each one is a different type of simcha and a joy. Okay, so there's a hoda'ah, thanksgiving, is also an expression, it's an extension of azarma in a sense, of finding the good points. But there is a blemish to that. When a person is never happy, never giving thanks to Hashem, he's never happy. So the idea of also the Kila'im, the admixture of seeds or plantings, shows also the person doesn't take time to appreciate and give thanks for each separate thing, but he's always rushing. Let's add this, let's add that. It's very similar to the blemish of the vineyard, but it's on a different level of not giving thanks. So there's no care, there's no wine here. It's other seeds. It's all learned out by the way, the same verse. They learn out the two prohibitions of Kila'im and Kila'im from the same verses in Parshat Kedoshim and also this week's Parsha. They're all learned out together. But in the sense, they're separate because one is not appreciating your good point, not being happy about the good point. And number two is not giving thanks to Hashem, which is also not being happy, but you're not happy to the extent you're not giving thanks to Hashem about it, and you're too busy trying to mix, okay, let's do this, let's do that. What type of person, first of all, sows two types of seeds together? What are you doing? Why are you taking, grains of wheat and barley and sowing them together? Or the second halachic prohibition, you have a field of one type of crop. Why are you planting next to it? Why don't you distance? That person, he's always on the go. Yeah, let's come on, let's go do things. And he's never calm to be appreciative and happy and giving thanks. Okay, I don't have time now. Let's add this. Why is he sowing two types of grains together? Because he doesn't have time. Why is he planting one field right next to another field of a different type of grain in a crop? Because he doesn't have space. He wants to save. So he's very tight attitude, very mitzumtzam, constricted. So that type of attitude shows that he's never taking time to give thanks. To give thanks, you need a break. You need a space. And the person is showing he doesn't have a break, doesn't have a space. No, let's sew everything together. No time to waste. We need time. We need to produce. We need to gain. And I don't have time and place to waste. No money to waste, etc. These type of people, they don't take a break to give thanks. They're always on the run to make more money, to make more this, to profit. So they're not a thanksgiving type of person. That's a prohibition of, again, not separating a gap between two types of crops, or better yet, like this week's Parsha, of sowing two types of grains together. So this is the blemish in giving thanks. And that's that causes the kele, the being incarcerated, imprisoned, the goodness due to the blemish of not giving thanks. And now, last one, the joy of the future corresponds to the tree, the admixtures of the trees, grafting, okay? The tree is the biggest representation of all of creation, which started with the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There's also the tree of life. But the Torah starts the whole story that we know about the beginning of the Torah of creation with the first mitzvah of Adam and Chava, not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because by doing that they will cause the admixture of good and evil. It's the beginning of the creation, and the goal of us in creation now is to fix Adam and Chava's initial sin, and thus restoring the ability to separate good from the evil, and thus being ready to taste and partake of the tree of life when Mashiach finally comes, the Etz Chaim Bezrat Hashem. Okay, so on one hand, it's going to what happened in the past, but it's connected to the future joy, because the rectification of the blemish of Adam and Chava is to fix the tree of knowledge of good and evil, of having the evil separated from the good. And once that's done, we can take care of the bad, the evil, and rectify it. But until then, everything is mixed in. Grafting of a tree is just doing that the same. Hashem created this tree of oranges, it's oranges. He created this tree of lemons, lemons. He created this tree of grapefruit. Why are you mixing? Why are you not happy? Why are you trying to add to Hashem's creation? No, we want to create more, we want to do more, we want to invent more. But you're not happy, you don't like the peach, you don't like the tangerine. Yeah, I mean, there's also admixtures in fruits, right? Tangerines, etc., oranges. You're not happy? You have to graft. The grafting shows that the person is always looking to mix the good and the evil. Different trees, one tree compared to another one, it's good, and that one's evil for it. Separate, it's good. But once you try to graft them together, You are doing a repetition of the admixture of good and evil. Why are you breaking the borders that Hashem created in His creation? Once it's done, okay, that's it. We can have pomelo fruits, we can have nectarines. I think it's tangerines, which are from that admixture, if I'm not mistaken, or clementines, one of the two. You can eat them now. Once they're done, it's done. Okay, but why initiate it? So this is a blemish of the joy of the future, because the joy of the future will be when we finally rectify the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We're able to elevate the evil and turn it into good, okay, by taking all the holy sparks which are trapped in the admixture of tree of knowledge of good due to the admixture of tree of knowledge of good and evil, able to now to sift out the good, so now the evil stays evil, okay, then it can be worked on and rectified, or destroyed, or totally rectified once we extract the good that's trapped in it. But until then, we're waiting for the final future redemption to come to do that. And when working in the meantime, struggling with the exchange chambers, trying to extract from the admixture of the craziness of this world, to extract the good. But until then, we have to wait until it's finally done when Mashiach comes. So the grafting of the trees is representing the blemish of the final goal rectification, which is the simcha of the future Bezrat Hashem. So we see a hint that these 5 correspond to these 5. The 5 blemishes of simcha are found in the 5 types of forbidden admixtures, and the admixture is similar to what the blemish of simcha is. Now Rashi points out, and the Chumash points, they're called chukim. It's unexplainable. It's a chok. That the laws of Kila'im are unexplainable. Because the truth is, it is beyond our intellect to understand. Still, all these details, we can give hints, but ultimately, the deeper meaning behind all this, we have no clue whatsoever. It's all locked out from us. Because the exchange of chamber is just that. The only way to be able to fight, to extract the good, in other words, the evil of the chamber of exchanges and extracting the good, is through being besimcha. And this simcha, Rebbe Nachman teaches, is drawn from the keter. It comes from the level of the keter, and the keter in the Kabbalah is the level that's beyond the person's grasp. It's beyond the person's capacity of intellect. And that's what Rashi points out, that these 5, they're chukim. The way to understand them, there's no way. They're beyond rationale, beyond logic. Because specifically, it's from the level of the keter, which is beyond rationale, beyond logic. Can we have the strength of simcha to face the exchange chambers, to find the holiness trapped there, and then to come out with the holiness back up on a higher level of keter Bezrat Hashem. So we should be zoche not to fall in the trap of the kele, of the imprisonment, of the holiness trapped, the Kila'im, and we'll be zoche using Rebbe Nachman's advices of 5 ways of joy, of always making it through every test we go through, because every test we go through is basically a test of the exchange chambers. It's every level. We have another exchange chamber of exchanges, another one, and we should always be able to find and extract the holiness and bring it out Bezrat Hashem until finally everything's collected, and that will actually activate the coming of Mashiach Bezrat Hashem. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you for joining.